Yes, I'm doing it at the moment. Wait a second.
Yeah, it happens. It actually happened to us before. YouTube does that. And that's the one we've got live. Oh, awesome. Okay, great. So we've got everybody. So we can start right now on our webinar. It's actually quite funny because when we were setting it up, it was a different link that we got. So here we go. I'm glad that you guys are joining right now. So everybody is live. Yeah, hello, hello. And it's funny that you 000, you're the first one. So it's a perfect start from the number perspective of our webinar. Hello, hello. And also we can see guys from many locations, so Texas. And actually I was also watching the chat before, so thanks for switching. We've got Georgia, Costa Rica. Wow, that's so cool. We've got as well Denmark, South Africa, nice. Germany, Munster, hello Andy, and Sweden. We've got Switzerland, Netherlands, Germany as well. Yeah, awesome. Hello, hello. And Orlando, is that Orlando? Jupiter, Sami, you wrote that? That's hopefully somewhere close by. And yeah, so we got Macedonia and loaner laptop. Here we go. Hello, John. And we've got Netherlands, fantastic. Poland, awesome. Denmark, Ohio, Oregon. Oh, I wonder, like, what's the weather in Oregon right now? Austria, Warsaw. Wow. Like, yeah, thanks guys for coming. Cluj-Napoca, yeah, nice. Hello, hello. And fantastic. Netherlands as well. Macedonia again. Portugal, nice. Ukraine, fantastic. Yeah, Czech, UK. Oh, that's so cool as well. And Switzerland, fantastic. Yeah, so we've got a whole world that is on this webinar, that's for sure. And New Jersey, nice. Hello. Budapest, fantastic. And Minnesota, wow, this is such a nice region. So awesome, good to see you guys. Bulgaria, New York City, oof, always, I miss it. Awesome, and hi Mark as well. So it's good to see you guys as well. Costa Rica, very strong team from Costa Rica, I can see. Yeah, fantastic. So so lovely to see you, and Latvia as well, Norway, Uzbekistan. That's so cool. You joined first our new link, so that's very nice. Sparta, Greece. Sounds awesome. Okay, guys. I mean, this is Iceland, fantastic. Belgium as well. Yes. Did I miss someone? So we've got Georgia as well. Yeah. So Prague, fantastic. Vancouver. Oh, I miss it so much. I've been to Vancouver so many times. But anyway, lovely to see you. Hi Lars as well from Norway. So when we've got our little bit of housekeeping, let me do it first, and then we're gonna get into our webinar. So first of all, warm welcome and thanks for getting into the second link. And eventually we're gonna be discussing today lots of things related with cybersecurity. But first, let me do the intro. So I'm Paula J, speaking here, and welcome to our webinar that's called Hackers Hunt. And it's simply 3 experts against cybersecurity threats in 2022. And the world, as we all know, still hasn't gotten to the old normal. And as you see what's happening in this world, probably it will never will. And it means that now and we need to, of course, prepare ourselves for the cybersecurity threats of 2022 and beyond. It's slowly, as we can see, becoming a new normal, and we definitely have to have deep knowledge about what's happening in this world. This webinar, of course, is live, so fingers crossed that everything's going to go well and it's going to be very intense. Well, hopefully, of course, webinar system won't crash on us, because it actually happened to I guess everybody here, especially from the speaker's perspective before. So lots of surprises happens always, but fingers crossed for this one. And I can see that there's lots of you guys still joining us live, so absolutely warm welcome. Please make sure, of course, to say hi as you did as always on our webinars, and maybe you can also tell a little bit about yourself as well once you are entering the room. Do you work in IT? Do you work in forensics? Do you work in cybersecurity? We are absolutely curious here, and we are as well on the chat, seeing, of course, all the things. So please go ahead and use also the chat to ask questions during the webinar. And if something happens that we crash and so on, please reload the link from the email, from the one that you got. It's set to redirect, so whatever happens to this stream, you will be taken to the new one. So fingers crossed, of course, for that one. And yeah, as most of you probably know, I'm Paula J. I'm the CEO of CQURE and CQURE Academy. And this is our annual webinar, Hackers Hunt, 3 experts against cybersecurity threats in 2022. So yeah, a little bit of a housekeeping done, and I think we can get slowly into a little bit of introductions. So what's even more awesome for our webinar is that I'm not alone over here today, and I've got 2 amazing and I will repeat it, amazing guests joining us live, and that's Sami, Laiho, and Michael Grafnetter. So here we go. And guys are joining from different parts of the world as well, but I guess we're all used to that, because we are all working remotely for quite a while right now, with a little bit of travel for some of us, but then that's something that we are used to. And of course, Sami, Laiho, let me do it, Sami, for the introduction, but I think you will definitely have something to add. Is as you all know, one of the world's leading professionals in Windows security, Windows operating system, and Sami has been working and teaching operating system troubleshooting, management, security for more than 15 years. Is it like that, Sami?
Yeah, well, I'm getting older and older, which means that that's probably now, I started teaching in 2000, so I've actually already been teaching for 21 years now.
Oh, okay, so here we go. And Sami's session, by the way, was also evaluated the best session on TechHeads. So various TechHeads out there, and also same story at Ignite, yeah?
Absolutely. And a few times I've been the best male presenter at Ignite because of some certain lady.
I'm wondering who that might be, but anyway, Olaf, and we've got, of course, Michael Grafnetter, Identity Cloud and Cybersecurity Architect. And Michael is an expert on Active Directory security in general. And Michael, of course, works as cybersecurity consultant, trainer, researcher, and he is definitely best known as the author of the Directory Services Internals, as you guys know it as DS Internals.
Yeah, hello, good evening.
Awesome. And yeah, please do not hesitate to ask questions as much as you can, because this webinar in general is divided into 3 parts, where all of us is going to present something interesting for the upcoming year. So what is important and what you guys definitely need to know. And what is as well important is that, as I mentioned, please do not hesitate as well to comment during the session, because we are observing the chat, and it will be lovely for us as well to see your comments, so that we can have it as well as a conversation. Of course, as promised, we are going to as well announce during the webinar the results of the winner of the hacking challenge we shared with you yesterday. So stay with us, because it's always cool to find out the right answer, and because the prize is definitely worth it. Some of you might already know what's the prize, in fact, but I won't spoil it, of course, for others, and you technically need to wait. Yeah. So let me start by a short introduction at the very beginning of our team, who we are and why actually we are here to present stuff on cybersecurity. That is also quite important, because I need to do it in order for you to believe that we are doing some super practical stuff on the other side. And we are definitely not really a training company. All of our experts spend approximately 75–80% of their time, in summary, working as consultants on various customer cases around the world. And well, now situation, of course, it's a bit different, but we still try to do our best in travels, and we split the rest of our time on the research. All of us do research on cybersecurity, and our team, CQURE, and that's the company that I have established 13 years ago, so quite a long time ago. It is something that basically delivers cybersecurity services, so penetration testing, also forensics, also incident response, but also consulting on cybersecurity in various cases, being on the technically always on a good side. And we do have, I think I can say that, lots of experience working with customers on various cases. Yes, so sometimes we are traveling somewhere immediately because the customer on the government level is attacked, and our job is to help them not only to recover but also to stop various activities. Sometimes we are implementing identity solutions or reviewing identity solutions for the company that is as big as we can imagine. So it's like an enterprise organization where they want to verify how their identity is working. So various aspects from cybersecurity we are covering. Within our team, we got also access to the source code. For example, I do have, and that's something that allows us to do a little bit more in cybersecurity, and it allows us to stay up to date with various security knowledge that we got. And of course, this is something as well that allows us to come into various conclusions to share with you on these kind of webinars. And as well, from the tools perspective, we do also write them. We've got quite a lot of them, actually, because we've written over 200 tools, and that's something that we always share with not only, of course, participants of the webinar, but also with someone that is engaged in general with us as a team and our activities. And this is something I think that I could say that some of the other training institutions might like sometimes, because we do education that's coming simply from the passion, from the consulting world. So we are, as I mentioned before, not really any training company, even though, of course, we've got CQURE Academy, which is our branch of education in the team. Most of our trainings that we deliver, by the way, are offline. They're organized by our partners, big organizations, and so on. And we are actually a team of experts, supporters that is right now with the size of approximately 50 people. And we are spread across 4 offices in the world, which is in New York, Dubai, Zurich, and Warsaw in Poland. Yeah, so we are constantly growing, of course. And well, if you want to be technically part of a team, one thing for sure, you need to be a raccoon lover, because this is the rule number 1. The rest is going to come. So maybe not that we still need to be quite devoted to cybersecurity, but definitely a raccoon lover. It's a requirement for the team and to join it. Anyhow, regarding the housekeeping, of course, what else we need to know in order to, of course, assure the quality of your webinar, in order to assure your good experience. Here, there's a couple of tips that you guys need to know. As you can see, if you got problems with viewing this webinar, try refreshing the page first, or just maybe try another browser. That could be also the option. Depends, of course, on what you're using. If problems persist, please let us know in the comment section or on info@secureacademy.com. If you drop us an email, we are monitoring it during the webinar. And if there's a connection or software problem, please look into your email box for more instructions, because things may happen. And if the transmission on YouTube breaks for, of course, any reason, make sure that, of course, you're going to refresh the link that you have received, and the link's going to redirect you with any sudden changes we will need to make. And eventually, as I mentioned, we're going to be taking questions during the webinar, but mostly as well, we're going to be taking questions at the end. So make sure that, of course, you're going to write them, and depending, of course, in which part of the webinar we're going to be, we'll be either handling them right now, or we're going to be handling them at the end. So it's going to be a 90-minute session today. So this is something that you can expect. So I hope that your brain is fresh, and here is what will come down today. First, of course, Sami will present the concept of privileged access workstations, privileged access approach within the organization. So he's going to also share with you his experience. Michael then will do the deep dive into the shadow credentials in Active Directory, and that is also pretty awesome. This is in order to show you why monitoring identity, it's one of the steps to make definitely in 2022. Identity nowadays is so important, and has never been so important like right now. So it's like ever, and eventually that's something that you will need to as well cover in your organization. Not a really long time ago, we were doing as well a pen test when we were actually talking about it inside our team, that there are so many places where you were able to extract identity from, so that you can use it, for example, within the lateral movement. Now that identity, and that's the Sami's part, it's not supposed to be used in a certain way, because we were not supposed to even be able to do various things. So that is the concept, of course, of privileged access workstations. And my demo will cover various investigation methods to track hackers down and safeguard your organization. I would like to show you a couple of interesting insights of where you can extract information from after the attack, and eventually how you are able to make a couple of things, couple of files, couple of items that you are able to extract from the memory integral, so that you can use it for later. Yeah, so that will be the case of a broken logs that I would like to fix, and that will be also the case of privileged access as well, to show you under which conditions we are able to extract various type of information. So at the end, of course, there will be a challenge question and announcing the winner, who is gonna receive a cool prize. And of course, we're gonna finish with a live Q&A with guys and myself, and we will try to get all of your questions answered. So make sure that you guys gonna get them ready if there's something in particular that you would like to cover. So before we move forward, let me give you a little bit of an insight about what is happening right now within the cybersecurity, and the reason why we need to make it is to put you into the field of this mood of the webinar, why these three subjects in particular we think are cool to cover. First of all, we used to, of course, to bring up during the webinar some crazy statistics that justify why we do what we do, and we are on the mission, of course, to share our knowledge and help as many geeks as we can to progress pretty fast and become Windows security experts. As you guys, of course, you are really needed out there. Yeah. So as you can see, according to CQURE cybersecurity workforce study, the global cybersecurity workforce gap in 2021, as you can see, it's still 2.7 million with the current workforce, of course, of 4.2 million. So it also shows that our investment into cybersecurity, stepping into the subject, it's necessary. And to be fair, we've been struggling pretty much for the past 13 years. So this is the moment when the company was growing. I've been always struggling with hiring new people to the team and cooperating with someone who is skilled in order to make sure that we are representing good cybersecurity values. That's why today we are meeting with you guys, and we are with Sami and Michael all together on the webinar. And as you can see within the second stat, according to US Bureau of Labor Statistics, here we've got an employment of information security analysts that is actually projected to grow 33% from 2020 to 2030. And I would say not a surprise, because cybersecurity is a part of everything that we are dealing with. Even quite recently, my colleague that is more participating in the marketing team told me that even on a Facebook related training, there was a separate module that was devoted only for cybersecurity, which technically was delivered to people that are not dealing with cybersecurity on an everyday basis, but they were showing how identity is important and that you've got things like multi-factor authentication and so on. So this is also important for someone who is not related that much with cybersecurity like we all are here. And well, it's a very good time for someone to become a true professional in this field. And there are good jobs around cybersecurity, that's for sure. And that means that's not only choosing the career field, but also constantly upgrading skills as hackers are, and threats, of course, keep on evolving. And of course, we want to help you honing your skills and assist you on your career path. And that's why we are organizing webinars like that. So without much further conversation out there, what will be important is to jump into the webinar. So let's dive straight into what we've prepared for you. And I think, Sami, I can pass the stage to you so that you can rock with your part. And then we're gonna listen to Michael and myself, and let's have a cool webinar out there. So I'm gonna switch off for the moment, and now it's Sami's part.
All right, let's get this shared first.
All works.
All works, great. So super nice to see so many of you here, and like Paula introduced already, I'm going to talk about implementing PAWS, so Privileged Access Workstations. And a short introduction, my name is Sami Laiho. I'm a Microsoft MVP in the core operating system, have been such for 11 years now. And I've been doing this for about 25 years, all things related to Microsoft. Since past 5-6 years, I mostly concentrated on security. And this time I decided to choose my topic to be about one thing that seems to be missing from most of my customers. I've been getting rid of end user admin rights for about 19 years now. Started that as a consultant in 2002 and been deploying allow listing solutions for as long. And now I'd say for the past 5 years or so, we've been still deploying allow listing. And now for the past few years, we're trying to concentrate on another topic, which is the correct use of privileges. I read, or I'm currently listening to a book written by a good friend of mine called Mikko Hyppönen, which I hope many of you know. And I was taking my dog out and listening to his book. I'm just wondering how I can ever listen to Mikko again at normal speed. But now after I listened to him, I was really happy that he shares so many thoughts with me. And one thing that he said in the book as well was that we should understand that security is not that technical or that difficult, but security is more about choosing correct concepts and ways of working. And one very simple thing is that if you have a device that can have malware, that device should not be able to take down your environment. So if you are Facebooking on the computer, that computer should not be able to touch your Azure portal or your on-prem Active Directory management ports. So that's what we're here to talk about today. And before we can head there, we have to speak a little bit about the tier model. So I have about 20 open cases with customers that had been breached. When I emphasized that they were breached before I got in, but I counted that 19 out of those, actually 21, so 19 out of those 21 cases would all have been prevented if there was one single thing in place, which is that domain admins would have been prevented from logging on to workstations. So tier model is something that I'm driving into every environment where I operate. So we divide the environment into minimum 2 tiers, but usually 3 different tiers. So we have the power, which contains domain controllers and PKI. Then we have the data, which contains servers. And then we have the endpoints in the access. Some call them layers, some call them tiers. But anyway, isolating these kind of silos from each other. And then we make policies. They might be Intune policies, they might be group policies, but some sort of policies that we use to make sure that domain admins cannot log on to anything but domain controllers. And one of the biggest misconceptions of Active Directory is that people think that they need domain admin rights somewhere outside of domain controllers. There's an old good trivia question that was in TechEd lunchtime trivia the first time I heard it, and the question was true or false. In a standard Active Directory, domain admins don't have any privileges on member servers or workstations. And most people say that it's false because domain admins have full privileges, but that's actually true. So you have to remember that domain admins, if you look at the security policy of a member server or workstations, there's not a single line there that would say domain admins. Domain admins get the privileges because they by default are joined to the local administrators group. But if you join Jake to the same group as domain admins, he's absolutely as equally powerful as the domain admin is, which means there's no reason for you to be a domain admin for managing anything except domain controllers, where you actually have access control lists that say domain admins. So you don't need them anywhere else outside the DCs, and they should be prevented from logging on. Same goes then for server admins. Server admins are only allowed to log on to servers, not endpoints. And then we have the workstation admins that can only manage workstations, but not log on to servers or domain controllers. Now, this becomes very difficult because if you start managing, let's say you open Group Policy Management Console from your workstation and you need to edit the default domain policy, then the problem is you cannot run as that Group Policy Management Console, because if you type in a domain admin account, it's prevented from logging on. So the whole tier model, when people start suffering from it, they think it's not working as supposed to. It's many times because they just forgot the privileged access workstation model. So the PAW model really makes this whole thing work. And the PAWs are the management workstations where you actually can log on with higher privileged users. Technically, this requires you to distribute or divide your computers in Active Directory so that you have domain controllers separated from servers that are separated from workstations that are separated from privileged access workstations. Now, technically, it looks something like this. Of course, all the technical details that we're going to see today are the things that I'll go through on the course itself, so we can drill into that. What we're here for today is I'm trying to get your motivation correct on why you should implement the whole concept itself. But I can teach you how to do that and how I've done it for tens and tens of customers. But technically, it's 5 different group policies that we need to use. Servers have them. Now, if you can't do anything else except one thing, then do this, which is tier 0 isolation. That means if you can't do everything else, what you need to do is make sure domain admins cannot log on to workstations, okay? That would have saved so many companies that I work with. If you log on to your computer, you have to remember that when you log on as a limited user, you compromise your own data and the shares you can write to. If you log on as a local admin to your machine, you suddenly have access to all the weapons. Mimikat starts working, all the bad things start to work. If you log on as a workstation admin, you compromise your workstations. If you log on as a server admin, you compromise your servers. If you log on as a domain admin, you lose the game. That's when you end up in the news. Because we're normally only encrypting data with ransomware, which means that they are, did I say we are? Okay, anyway, so normally the bad guys are using ransomware to encrypt data, and then they held the data hostage. That works when you have a person who has no administrative privileges. But then when you log on as a domain admin, the ransomware can just encrypt your Active Directory database or your sysvol folders and start holding the whole company for ransom, all operations down. And that's when you end up in the news. Every company has had ransomware. That's for sure. Some user will get ransomware, but that doesn't end up in the news. That's not saying things like our TV stations, one operator had ransomware. That's not on the news. The news is where you get when your company gets ransomed, okay? So the same goes for the cloud, although concept is the same. The buttons are in a little bit different place, and you have to do this with a little bit of different technologies. But in Azure, for example, this means that global admins are prevented from logging on to endpoints, and they can only access the tenant. And then we have workstation admins that are used to manage the endpoints. This has become extremely easy when we got to Windows 10 20H2, which allows the management of local users and groups properly. Well, the Privileged Access Workstation itself is a device that can take down your environment, to simply put it. Or it could be a device that can shoot missiles in some cases. So something that's very dangerous. And we should never mix these. Like Mikko said in the book, he often goes to the financial department of a company when they introduce the company, and then he asks them, what computer do you use to send to pay invoices? Well, this computer here. Okay, so what computer do you use to read Facebook? The same computer. Okay, that should never be done. Don't mix these things. Should not be browsing your internet from a device that you can use to take down your domain controllers. So remember, I am actually running Remote Desktop Protocol Week this week. I'm tweeting every day about RDP. Yesterday, I started about tweeting why people should stop using it as their default management thing, because RDP, even the documentation says that servers have 2 Remote Desktop Protocol connections, which are for emergency purposes only. There's only 2 licenses for a server, It would be ridiculous. Think about a big company. My biggest customer is 550,000 workstations, 400 admins. If they would work like we most do in Europe, they would just be calling each other on the phone. Hi, this is Sami. Can you log off the server? I can't fit in. Hey, this is Sami. There's too many sessions. I mean, how can there only be 2 sessions available for RDP on a server? Because it's for emergency purposes only. AirSat and Windows Admin Center allow 16.7 million connections. And that's the way it was always supposed to be done. Also, group policy, for example, cannot be 100% managed from a server. You have to install AirSat, remote server administration tools, and your group policy management console on a client. Because many people think that group policy is up to date by just updating the ADMX and ADML files, which is not true, because the group policy editor reads values from the operating system that it's running on. Great example, try disabling web client service through group policy, running the editor on a server. You can't, because the services list is loaded from the operating system. So you have to have it on that workstation anyway. That's how Microsoft manages anything, Azure, any of their data centers. You can only manage them from a workstation. You can't RDP anything. RDP stands for Ransomware Deployment Protocol. Okay. So we do all the management from workstations if we do it correctly. And this means that on these machines where you install those management tools and everything, on these machines, you have a little bit different policies because you can actually log on with the privileged accounts. Privileged access workstations allow logon by dangerous people, but on the other hand, they do not allow you to connect to the internet normally. Why do we do this? There are a lot of reasons. The one I already mentioned, management tools were never meant to work on servers. Servers are supposed to be headless. The new server versions of 20H2 and such, they don't even have a GUI. And that's how servers are supposed to be. Like CQURE, Nano Server, the new modern server versions, they don't have a GUI. It's not even on the roadmap. Why would you RDP into a shell when you can just run the shell equally good from a remote machine? So servers are supposed to run services and work headless. You're not supposed to log on to them unless they're Citrix servers or RDS. You can't just log on with those high privilege users wherever. I do a test when I do security audits for companies. My first test is I'll take a secretary's computer and I try to RDP into a server. If the pop-up for username and password opens, you're screwed. Okay. So many people think it's not a problem because the authentication will prevent you from logging onto the server, but the problem is the RDP protocol itself is weak. So you have to prevent it at the protocol level. How do we do this? We have different platform levels. So we can do it on a platform level 1, which means that you should always remember that the most important thing in security is to remember the rule that in security, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And if you can't have this PAW concept built, at least what you can do is just decide that a laptop is either a privileged one or a non-privileged one. Even if it can access internet, at least make sure that your RDP connections from your domain controllers will only respond to laptops that are used by the IT people. They can take, hopefully, a little bit better care of their devices. Then we have platform level 2, the most used one, which is like I have here. I got a, let me just see, where's my Hyper-V console. So what I'm doing is I have my normal operations on my laptop. And then I have a virtual machine here called PAW1. This is my privileged access workstation. Nowadays, it's allowed to run it this way, that you can have the platform, have the host run your day-to-day stuff, and administration can be done in the VM. It used to not be like that because we didn't have virtual TPMs for the virtual machines, but now we do. Now these can do secure boot, these can do virtual TPMs. So that's probably one of the most used one. And then platform level 3, where you have actually different devices to this. I have friends that work for the military and they have 7 laptops in their backpack. one laptop for reading email, one for managing workstations tier, one for managing servers tier, one for managing domain controllers tier, and they have an office network and a production network. So they have 7 laptops that they need. You don't have to go full Monty with this, okay? So don't take it too seriously. Also, don't go and take Microsoft's PAW documentation from their website. Honestly, you should remember that currently at Microsoft, it takes 100 engineers to know everything about Windows. You're not going to find a consultant from Microsoft that knows everything, how it's supposed to be done in the real world. Really sorry for that. So I have these people who tell me that, but we have done everything according to Microsoft documentation for PAW. But that's just, don't do that. Honestly, those are meant for military computers that shoot missiles. Tip from a Finnish guy, there's a great Finnish operating system that you should be using if you're shooting missiles, by the way. But anyway, so don't go too serious with this. Principle of least privilege, and these are not that dramatic as they might sound, or Microsoft might make them sound. Same goes for privileged access workstations. The concept of PAW can be as simple as you cannot shoot down the domain controller from anything but an IT department's laptop. That's a PAW, okay? We can technically allow things that are known as jump servers as well. It's not the thing that we prefer because honestly, Windows was always built to be managed from workstations, but so many of my customers use jump servers that I will nowadays allow it. But the only thing there is what's known as clean source principle, which means that you can only connect to those jump servers from the PAW. Okay, so you can use jump servers, but jump servers can only be connected from a PAW. At the end of the day, this is relatively simple. Like in this picture, we have the privileged access workstations that cannot access the internet, but can access the management ports of your servers. So if we get malware, this is not the route to work or to go through. And then we have a standard PC that can browse the internet, but on the other hand, cannot take down your servers. We can do this with different kinds of firewall solutions. I usually do it with IPsec because it makes it easy for me to just add my computer to a certain group, and then it can manage. If you have the jump server in between, almost the same deal, except that we just force that the jump servers can only be connected to from the PAW. Also, group memberships work a little different here. So if on a standard PC you would be able to log on as a domain admin, then it would be a local admin on that machine as well. So it would have full privileges when it connects. And also the workstation admin, if it connects to this machine, it gets full privileges locally. But if you use a domain admin, it can't log on here, but it can log on to a PAW. But when it logs on to the PAW, it's removed from the local admins group, which means that you can log on with the high privileged account that can take down your services, but it can't use the guns. I introduced something at Ignite a few years ago. I wanted to have my Steve Jobs moment, so I got to introduce the iPaw. And of course, end my session by saying, oh, one more thing. But anyway, so I believe this solution is somewhere in the middle. It's not Microsoft's all-in or staying completely without the privileged access workstation model. I built concepts of PAWs for many, many different companies, and there's no single thing that would work for everyone. But there are certain basic configuration needs that we will do different on the PAW. So it has to have, for example, always a 64-bit operating system. It has to have BitLocker enabled with the PIN code as well, although I normally only use TPM. Hopefully it has no DMA enabled buses, so it would be great if if it didn't have Thunderbolt 3. I always say Thunderbolt 3 is the fastest bus ever to steal your computer's memory. Block DMA access to the computer, do not allow inbound RDP. There's nothing more silly than having the concept of a PAW and then messing it up so that you leave your PAW on your desktop and you remotely connect to that PAW from somewhere else, breaking the clean source principle. Block fast user switching so people cannot hide things in other sessions. Force it to go to BitLocker recovery if you type in the password too many times incorrect. Block UAC virtualization, block higher tier admins if you use multiple different PAWs. And the most important thing, of course, allow only IT personnel to log on. Don't allow anyone else to log on to those machines. If you want to check Microsoft's new version of this, Microsoft RAMP, Rapid Modernization Plan. It's a very good document for PAWS, but that's for Azure environments only. Their PAW document for on-prem sucks, but this one is actually good. And I definitely recommend that you go and check it out as well. That's a short intro on how this whole thing works. I'll show you a super fast presentation or a demonstration about this. So here, I mean, everyone is of course asking how this can be done, and I will teach you how this is done on the course. But before that, I'll show you how it's technically done here. So what we do is we will have PAWS that can talk IPsec if needed, but we only deploy IPsec for the management connections, not for the whole network now. But people get afraid when I say IPsec because they think encryption, although I only use AH protocol, which is authentication, not encryption. So this RDP, and then the domain controllers, we say that we will not allow you to speak RDP. So this is a little bit funny way, but this is how it's done. So what we say is, where is it? Windows Firewall here. So what we technically say is we block RDP from everyone, and then we actually allow what's known as a IPsec bypass. And this way we get into a situation where we can say that only if the computer belongs to the Active Directory group called GPAWS will it be able to connect to this domain controller in this case. So here we have a normal Windows machine. I'm breaking the rules here by logging on. And if we go, let me see, where's, oh, apparently I shut it down, MSTSC, and this will be CON-DC1. That will not work because IPsec authentication does not allow that computer account to make the connection on the network level. And then we have a PAW, and you can see that it already starts connecting. Okay. So technically, what I usually prefer is IPsec. Then we use MFA for all these connections. I usually use Cisco MFA, but all those details you can see later on the course. That's a short intro. I hope you have some motivation to deploy privileged access workstations, and I hope to see you in the course. And that's my part. Now I'm going to hand it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Sami, for that one. And so now it's part for Michael to present on the identity security within the Active Directory. So Michael, you can take over the stage. It's yours.
Hello, everybody. So our next talk will be about shadow credentials in Active Directory. And yeah, it's something I invented, let's say, approximately 2 years ago. But it got more famous in the recent months. For example, this is what Andy Robbins, the co-author of Bloodhound, has tweeted about this attack. And yeah, basically what he's saying, the attack is about turning generic write into a targeted DC sync. You can take over a user account without resetting the password of that account, and you can even get that account's current password hash even without domain admin's permissions. So we are first going to talk about some introductory stuff about this attack. Then I will show you how that attack primitive actually can be weaponized, how it can be misused in different scenarios. And in the last couple of minutes of this talk, I'm going to show you how you can detect it and how you can defend your Active Directory environments against it. So let's start with the introduction. So this attack was made possible by Windows Server 2016 Active Directory because of new features which were introduced in this server because of Windows Hello for Business to support so-called key-based trust. And then I presented the first version of this attack in 2019 at Black Hat Europe in the talk called Exploiting Windows Hello for Business. The video here, YouTube recording is still available out there in case you are interested. And the first version of the attack was also implemented in my PowerShell module called DS Internals. It's written in PowerShell and in C#. And we at CQURE have internally called this attack bronze ticket attack, but we haven't published that name. But I still have a mug referencing this attack type and this name. But a couple of months ago, the attack was rediscovered by Ilya Chamir, and he has written a very interesting blog post about it called Shadow Credentials something, and he has actually provided the name to this attack. And he also released a tool called Whisker, again written in C#. It's a single exe file that can perform end-to-end automation of this entire attack. And then later a Python version of the same thing was released under the name PyWhisker. So it's also available in Kali Linux. And my friends and colleagues have told me that they've actually already seen this attack to be performed, not only in red teaming engagements, but also by the adversary. So it's definitely something you should know about. And the attack misuses this relatively new attribute in Active Directory, which is called NSDS key credential link. It's used for hosting NGC keys or next-gen credentials, where you have one-to-many relationship between a user account and public keys of that account, including some metadata. And again, it's used for Windows Hello for Business in order to create a trust between a TPM chip of your notebook or a workstation and your user account, so that you can use biometrics in a very secure way in Windows environments. And it's one of the pillars of Microsoft's passwordless initiative, because this really replaces password-based authentication by public-private key-based authentication. So it's much more secure. So how would the attack look like? Like this would be the longer version using my tools and built-in PowerShell commands in Windows. So in the first step, you need to generate a self-signed certificate. You can use the new self-signed certificate commandlet in PowerShell, and we don't care about the validity of that certificate. So let's generate it for the next 30 years. What it requires is this attribute or extension saying that it will be a smart catalog on certificate. And we, of course, need that certificate to be exportable, stored in software, so that we can transfer it from one computer to another computer. And it will be a standard 2K RSA certificate, yeah, a self-signed certificate looking something like this. The only thing we are interested in is the public-private key pair. In the second step, we are going to wrap that certificate's public key into a called key credential or NGC key. This is a PowerShell representation of the data structure. It adds some metadata like device ID, creation date to that key, and also information about in what environment it was generated, whether it was generated in Active Directory or in Azure Active Directory. Next, we need to write this data structure into Active Directory, into a user account's attribute called NSDS key credential link. And we can use the built-in PowerShell command in the Active Directory module called setAD object. And when you then look into that attribute using Active Directory users and computers, Microsoft Management Console, you see that this attribute is populated with some binary values, which are not well readable, but that's it. And you can then use a tool as an attacker, either CQURE, which is a brother of Mimikatz, or any other tool which can perform PK-init or Kerberos public-private key-based authentication. So you take that certificate, you authenticate against that Active Directory account through the Kerberos protocol or its PK-init extension. So let me show you how that could look like in a virtual environment. So first, I'm going to generate this self-signed certificate using the built-in PowerShell command. So let me mark it and execute it. So I now have the certificate. I will then wrap it and create that data structure. And the only custom command here in this demo is the get key credential command. Yeah, that's the one which is part of the DS internals PowerShell module. So the data structure is created, and I will now set that attribute on the user account in Active Directory. And I can then check the presence of that attribute using get AD user commandlet. And I will pass the data structure again using DS internals commandlet, so that I don't only see the gibberish binary data, but that I see a meaningful representation of the data. So I see that user John has multiple NGC keys configured on his user account, all sourced from Active Directory, all generated by DS internals. And the last one is probably the one which I've just generated. And I can also export that certificate to a PFX file and then remove it from my computer's certificate store. So if I look into Explorer, the PFX file is here. Yeah, that's the certificate. And I have encrypted it using a very super secret password. And the last step I'm going to perform, that's the most interesting one. I'm going to use a tool called Rubius, which is a tool, open source tool available at GitHub, created by guys from SpectreOps and others. And it can perform many interesting operations with the Kerberos protocol. And one of the things it can do, and which I will do, will be the Kerberos PK-init authentication. So I will tell it the username, path to the certificate, and of course, password to decrypt the certificate. I want to do Kerberos AES-256 authentication. And I also want to perform pass the ticket using freshly generated TGT, ticket granting ticket, and I want to run a command line with that. So let me execute it. And multiple things have actually happened. So if I look into the output of KList on this computer, let me zoom in a little bit. So I see that I've successfully received a Kerberos ticket for user John, and it's already in my Kerberos cache, as the KList tool is saying. And I will now open up LDP exe tool, Active Directory client. And when I connect to my Active Directory environment against the default domain controller, you see that I am really authenticated against Active Directory as user John, and I only use that self-signed certificate to authenticate as that user. I can now view the Active Directory tree and perform basically any operation in Active Directory using that stolen account. And it gets even funnier. the ticket granting ticket, which originated from PK unit authentication, also contains NT hash of that user account. That's MD4 hash of the user's password. So Rubius is also able to decrypt that information from the TGT and show that to the attacker. So if you can write to that MSDS key credentialing attribute, you can impersonate the user, and you can also get their password hash and perform either pass the hash attack, or you can start cracking this password hash using tools like Hashcat or John the Ripper or whatever. Yeah, so that was the shadow credentials attack in a nutshell. So we've seen that we could authenticate, we could crack the hash, we could perform pass the hash attack, and we can also misuse it to perform some persistence attack, because the values of this attribute of MSDS key credentialing will survive password change and password reset operations. So if a malicious user modifies this attribute on an administrative account, or even better, on a domain controller account, and it gets unnoticed, even if the passwords of these accounts get changed, the attacker might still retain their access, their administrative access to Active Directory. What requirements are there in order to successfully perform this attack? Well, you need to have at least one Windows Server 2016 domain controller in the environment. And you also need to have a KDC certificate installed on that domain controller. Without that, it won't be able to perform the PK unit authentication. But most organizations already have PKI. They already have at least one certificate authority present in the Active Directory environment. So their domain controllers typically automatically get these certificates enrolled. So that's okay. And as you have seen, I also require the permission to modify the MSDS key credential link attribute. And this can be done if I have that permission delegated directly, or I could have a generic all permission, or I could have the right owner or right DACL, right access control list permission in Active Directory. With all of these, I can take over the account and I can modify that target attribute. So who has these permissions in Active Directory by default? Well, apart from domain admins, of course. Well, computer objects can modify their MSDS key credential link attribute by default by performing the validated write to computer attributes. And then key admins and enterprise key admins, two groups which are introduced in Windows Server 2016, can also perform the modification because they have this permission delegated directly. Yeah, so these groups, you can find them in the users container, and typical members of these groups are Active Directory Federation Services, ADFS, and Azure Active Directory Connect when it's performing device write-back and synchronization of user attributes from cloud to on-premises Active Directory. It then, of course, requires these permissions. As already said, computers have this permission by default for their own computer account. And you can modify it using PowerShell when you are able to impersonate that computer's account, maybe when it's executed on the system or under network service permission. And you first need to clear the original value of the MSDS key credentialing attribute, and you can then write your own value to this attribute. An alternative approach to all that you've seen previously is using the Whisker tool, which was created by Elad Shamir, and it automates the entire process end to end. You just tell it the name of the target, either computer or user account, and it will automatically generate that certificate, write it into that object, and so on. And it will also tell you the command line parameters for Rubius tool, which you can then use to authenticate against that account using the certificate, and the entire private key of the certificate is actually written here on the command line. So that makes it much more simple. And this is also a screenshot of the PyWhisker tool, the Python tool executed from Kali Linux. So similarly, you run that Python script, you tell it the name of the domain, user account, you authenticate against your Active Directory, and you then tell it the target account which you'd like to attack. And you either list the NGC credentials of that account or use the add command, and it will then generate the certificate, write it, and you can then see that the data is really written into that user account. And in the next step, you could use PKInit tools to actually authenticate against that user account using the certificate, which is stored in a PFX file, and we will then save the TGT ticket granting ticket. And you can also use the get anti-hash tool or script from PKInit tool to actually read the anti-hash from that TGT. So everything's open source. You can find this tool and the others at GitHub. You could even use this with a command and control channel in a more sophisticated attack. So you can combine PyWhisker with proxy chains, which would reroute traffic from Kali Linux, from hacker's machine to a Windows computer, from which it would pivot all the network calls against Active Directory. So it allows you to use proxy chains together with the PyWhisker tool. Again, a very interesting approach. There is also a pull request for the Impacket project for Impacket NTLM relay, where you can perform this operation, the modification of the MSDS key credentialing attribute, and you can chain it with an NTLM relay attack. So you steal someone's identity at the network level, and then you misuse their user session to perform this attack. So very, very dangerous. So what you can do against it? What you can do against this attack? Well, of course, you need to perform some auditing. Well, you could look into the attribute using the graphical user interface, using Active Directory using computers, but unfortunately, you won't see much, and you cannot even use the user interface to delete the values from this attribute. If you look at that attribute using regular PowerShell, it really looks spooky, like it tells you nothing when you see the raw data. You could probably use LDP, which tells you some more information about this attribute, but not too much more. It doesn't understand some of the flags which are defined in those objects. So you are left better with DS internals, which can pass the data and which can show you all those NGC credentials and other credentials which are stored in the MSDS key credentialing attribute. If you want to delete them, you can use the default PowerShell module, either set AD user or set AD computer, and you can just clear all the values of the MSDS key credentialing attribute. Or you could perform selective deletion of a single value, of a single NGC credential, again, using PowerShell, using this short script. If you execute it, it will show you a graphical user interface. I'll grid view, my most favorite PowerShell command, and you can point and click, select some of those NGC keys, and as soon as you hit OK, it will delete those keys from your Active Directory. And there is also a tool from Microsoft, which was created as a reaction to my Black Hat talk. And their tool or PowerShell module is called WHFB tools, or Windows Hello for Business tools. And it can perform some audit or assessment of these NGC keys, both in Active Directory and in Azure Active Directory. And the report will show you how many keys are vulnerable with the ROCA vulnerability, and how many of such keys are orphaned, meaning they are not bound to any computer account and they are probably malicious, or they should definitely be checked whether they are legit or not. Speaking of the ROCA vulnerability, that's something which was discovered several years ago. It was about TPM chips in computers generating weak public-private key pairs, at least with RSA 2K keys. And you can again use DS internals to find such weak, vulnerable NGC keys in your Active Directory. And you can see here in this sample output that there is one generated in Azure Active Directory, which really is weak, vulnerable. It can be factorized, so you should definitely delete that key from your Active Directory. If you want to audit changes in Active Directory, you can look for changes in the MSDS key credentialing attribute, especially on privileged accounts. So it doesn't tell you much about the values, but it's very interesting to audit it. And you can also audit account logon events. If you are not using PKInit, if you are not using smart cards in your environment, then such smart card logon should be very, very suspicious in the logs. So here is the list of the tools you've seen in the presentation. And what you should remember from this talk is that if you have generic write on an object, it could lead to account takeover. That changes to the MSDS key credentialing attribute should be configured or considered as password changes or password reset, and it should definitely be audited, at least for highly privileged user accounts. If you ever used Windows Hello for Business, you should definitely check any pre-existing NGC keys for the ROCA vulnerability. And of course, you should always keep up to speed with new security features in Active Directory and all the other technologies you are using in your enterprise. So thank you for the attention. My name is Michael Grafnetter. I'm Microsoft MVP, and I also work with CQURE. Bye-bye. Paula, it's yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. Great. And I can see lots of interesting questions in the chat as well. So that's something that Michael's going to be answering as well right now. And now it's time for my part. It's going to be a very short part where you're going to learn various techniques that we are able to use in order to discover attacks. So let me share at that point my screen so that you guys can become familiar with those. And as you know, with forensics, there are so many things to actually discuss. So we could be spending here hours, but I would like to show you actually two interesting perspectives that we can have on extraction of data. One is going to be, of course, from memory, and another one is going to be from the disks. What is important while we do investigate a situation after the attack is to, of course, first evaluate the scope. And then we are learning the situation, we are recognizing it, and then we can, of course, apply appropriate actions and set up the priorities. Not always actually gathering the evidence might be the most important part out there. We might be focusing, for example, on just fixing the situation. Yes, so, but we've got sometimes possibility, and actually more often than we don't have, to gather the evidence. And one of the things that we should definitely remember is when we do it, we make a memory dump first. So we use, for example, FTK Imager, we use Dumpit, we use Belkacov RAM Capture, and so on. So there are so many tools to do it. And from the memory, we are able to extract various type of data. And this is something that I would love to show you. First of all, the case is quite interesting because I would like to extract files from memory. So why would you do it? For example, you might use this technique when you've got certain malware that is actually loaded based on the process injection. So for example, you've got a code that is loaded directly under a certain memory address of the process, and you don't have a file for that. Yes, so you might be, for example, here leveraging the fileless malware, where technically it's running directly within the memory, and your job's going to be to work on it in order to learn basically what that malware does. So that's one technique over here. And the second technique over there is related, or second reason for that is related with simply extracting files that are under edit. And what I mean by that is that when the file is edited, that edited part of it, it's going to be within the memory. So if there's something that someone worked on and you don't know what's that, then until the data is saved, you are not able to see it on the disk. So what I would love to show you, it's actually something that we had at our customer site, because we were in a situation where there was an admin who was sabotaging the network. And one of the things we were investigating, because this guy was actually deleting logs, was a situation where whether we are able to still find some logs, the single EVT-X entries within the memory, even though the logs are deleted. And we were. And that technique actually applies to all these situations that I've mentioned, but I would like to show you this one on the example of extracting the logs from the memory. So what we're going to do over there, first of all, we're going to get into a volatility master over here, and we're going to use volatility in Python in order to extract data from the memory dump. So let me just get into dumps, and then I got over there the analyze dump. And my job is going to be to extract, for example, these logs. Now, this is not that trivial situation, because you need to identify the place within the memory up front where you were able to get the files from. So that will be what? Because we are here thinking about the Windows event logs, it means that someone is processing it. Who's this? Well, that's going to be SVC host, because SVC host, as a service host there, hosts technically different services, including the Windows event log service. But we've got so many SVC hosts to choose from, and that is something that I would like to jump first to show you how we are able to actually differentiate. So here we're going to use profile, and actually that profile here needs to be relevant to the operating system we are analyzing. That dump that I got, it's a sample dump that I'm going to use. It is actually in this case Windows 7, but sincerely it doesn't really matter, or whether that will be Windows 10, you're going to choose the same steps. And here we're going to use the PS list, and within the PS list we've got simply a listing of the processes based on the active process links list. So based on the possibility to actually list the processes from the predefined list, and that is actually describing processes within the operating system. It's not a very reliable technique. The better would be PS scan for that case. I can show you the difference, but PS scan is a little bit longer. Here we've got a couple of SVC hosts, and then you are wondering which of those is actually appropriate for the Windows event log service. It's hard to say. So therefore we will need to list DLLs and identify a DLL that's loaded by SVC hosts in order to identify that SVC host. So first, let me show you the difference in between PS list and PS scan in this case. And within the PS scan, we will be able to see the difference in one process. So for example, if there is a process that's hidden as well, then we rarely see it actually, but if so, then we don't have such a thing like a hidden process really, because you can find it. Therefore, it's not really hidden. It's actually hidden only from the active process links list. And over there, you are able to see that we've got technically the malware.exe that we are able to find in the PS scan, and we are not able to find it in the PS list. So that's also quite interesting. The next part over there is related with, of course, as I mentioned, identifying that particular DLL. So we're going to do DLL list, and then we're going to do DLL list.txt. And within the DLL list.txt, you can, as I mentioned, list DLLs that are in general loaded within the operating system. So we can get into the DLL list.txt, and then find appropriate DLL. So that's going to be the WEVT. So let's search for it. So here we've got WEVT API in the bottom, and then we've got WEVT SVC DLL in the bottom. That is actually something we're looking for. So here you can identify based on that a process. So we've got a SVC host.exe, and that's the process ID 848 that is actually responsible for hosting a Windows event log. Okay, good to know. So taking that into consideration, we're going to run the next extraction over here, and we're going to do the dump files. And we are dumping files from the 848 process. So we're going to preserve the name, we're going to name the process ID, we're going to do 848, and we're going to dump into the directory called files, for example. Yep, so here we go. So now what is happening is that we are extracting right now information from the particular process. So from the memory, we are extracting files that are, in this particular case, as you can see, sometimes they appear EVTX files because it's a Windows event log. And right now we actually got into the point where we are extracting the DLLs, but it is actually all good, because I mean we can keep it running or interrupt it. We're not really interested in this one. We are more interested in the application log. So let's get into the files because we got that, and then we're gonna do in here dir anything application related. Let's figure it out, and then fantastic. We've got over here the file name. Yeah, which is representing application log, so pretty large one, that we are able to extract from the memory, or at least whatever it's left over there. Yeah, so if the log is deleted, we can still find out some traces within the memory. And that is also one of the ways how we can extract files that are as well stored within the memory. For example, edited text file by Notepad, then you're going to do the same story, but by leveraging Notepad as a process. Yeah. So here, what we're going to do, we will try to run it. So first of all, let's actually copy it. So I'm going to copy this particular VACB into our working folder. So that's going to be D tools, CQ tools. Here we go, tools. And then the next part, it's going to be the CQ folder, where we're going to be editing technically the file. Actually, I got so many things that start with CQ, so I think it would be better if I would just copy the path or use just directly the folder name. So let's do it, and that one is CQ EVTX recovery, and we got this. So we get a file that's copied there. Now this particular path we're gonna jump to. So let's do it. So I'm gonna go to the D drive and then directly to our particular folder. And here we're gonna rename the file into the file.evtx. Yeah, so that's the one. Now our job is going to be to verify whether it actually opens. And I pressed enter, and over there we are waiting for that file to be open. And you can see that details and so on, the event log file, it's corrupted and I'm not able to open it. Okay, so how can I fix it? What can I do to fix it? Answer to that one is very simple. So I'm going to close that. Is that you can always use our tool. And our tool, it's working very nicely for, well, first of all, extracting things from that broken EVTX files. But second idea over here is that that tool you can use to actually fix EVTX files, regardless the situation, if you ever see that EVTX is actually corrupted. And the next part is that we're gonna here copy that particular file to the folder that we got, so in. And we from the in folder, we're going to be producing the content into out folder. Out folder, you can see that it's empty. So we're going to fix, of course, that broken EVTX. So how do we do that? It's actually very simple. CQ EVTX recovery, in, and then we do out. And then we've got recovered 17 records. Our team reverse engineered EVTX files. They're not very easy because EVTX inside, we've got lots of digital signatures. So we've got chunks of data that are signed. We've got single records that are signed. So EVTX files in general create us a structure that whenever you make a minimal change, then the whole file actually is corrupted. So that's why whenever you have ever experienced that kind of situation, for example, you cannot import your log file into CM system or something like that, we can help you actually with that one with our publicly available tool. Now, the next part is to fix it, to see actually whether the fix worked or not. So we're going to go into the out directory, and then we got over there our EVTX. So let's open it up. So this is the one that opens. Let's wait. And in the moment we are calculating right now, it's actually calculated whether the signatures work, whether it's corrupted or not. And then eventually you can see that we've got some events that are readable. I know that what's different is that here we've got 4 events and here we can see 17 records. So it might be a little bit confusing, but these records are creating events. So that's why we can see only 4 events over there. And that's the content of the memory. So this is how we are able to learn what was happening even when the log has been deleted. And of course, we are aware that it's a very specific moment where we are making this memory dump, but if there is any situation where the hacker actually deleted logs and so on, then maybe there's at least something you are able to recover. And we all know it's all about small things. And we all know that memory is very volatile and we have to act super quickly if we are in a situation that we discover the attack, for example, running now. Of course, if the server was rebooted, there isn't much you are able to see, but that's something that also shows us that whenever we have an attack, one of the things that we should not do, of course, is to shut down the server because of the evidence that potentially might be useful over here. Okay, guys. So the next part that I would love to show you is actually pretty short because it's related with what kind of things we are able to extract from the disk. And besides, of course, the classic things like, of course, most recently used, like Windows indexing service, like prefetch, which show us, of course, the history of the processes that we're running, we are able as well to extract something that we call automatic destinations. And the reason why I picked automatic destinations to show you is because they are not really well described in most of the forensics, if not really all of the forensics books. And automatic destinations, it's something that we are doing the research about right now. So you can expect some more things to come out shortly. But for now, I would like to show you what automatic destinations are, how we are able to extract them, where they are, and how they can be useful in forensics. Okay, so let's see what we got. I'm going to use for that one very simple software that's called Structured Storage Viewer. And Structured Storage Viewer, it's a free software that you can use for opening various types of files, including, for example, the automatic destinations files, which are pretty simple if it's about the file type, but inside there are so many parts of the file that have to be interpreted that this is basically what we are doing the research for. We couldn't see that someone actually did it. There is actually the tool of Eric Zimmerman, but it's also covering only a certain part of it. We would like to put automatic destinations into pieces. So let me show you what they are first so that we can understand how powerful they are in forensics. So a structured storage viewer, a file, and then over there I have already in cache prepared 2 items, and I'm gonna use the second one. So if you have a look in the link over there, we've got a C users, Paula, updata, roaming, Microsoft Windows, recent, automatic destinations. If you're going to take that path name and you're going to paste it within your Windows box, within your, of course, username, you're going to see lots of files. And these files they have pretty strange names because they are like with a certain code names. Yeah, so we got here 9B, 9C, and so on. And the question is, what's that? We got here 1BC39 as an example. So what is it? Well, first of all, 9B, 9C, it's nothing but simply a notepad. And long story short, if we do have a look into the folder, so what we got over there, so this is or these are automatic destinations. That particular folder, just to show you, it's going to look like this. It's quite a lot of stuff. So that's my live machine. So eventually you are able to see that there is like so many things out there. Yeah? And we can sort by the date modify. You can see that first one I've got on 2020, and technically it looks like that I have never from that time modified it. Yeah, me as a user over there. So over there you're able to see that there's a couple of files that are being edited, for example, from even today. So there's like, for example, 9b9c. It's a good example for that. That's why I'm choosing it, because it's pretty large over here. And if we're going to open it up, if we select any of the structures here, any of the structures, for example, this one, you can see that, and that's pretty cool. We are able to see that 9b9c being a representation of a 64-bit notepad in the operating system is actually showing us that we have opened in the notepad dll-list.txt. That is exactly what happened. So what we are able to see over there is the situation that eventually we are able to here to technically identify that there is a particular text file or anything that has been opened, but only per notepad. But what about the other applications? And what I need to tell you is that that particular feature within the user profile actually helped us to participate within the project of a very set case. So sorry about the subject, but it was actually pretty useful. I was analyzing the drive in a case of childhood pornography, and there were not many things that you were able actually to find. Besides, in the user's profile, you were able to find automatic destinations and also the statements that within the Windows Media Player, there are for certain files with very indicative titles that were opened. Of course, these files can be modified, so they are not digitally signed and so on. So technically, they're not creating you an evidence, but they're creating you an indication that something happened within that environment. And then putting it into the more practical world, if you got a user that has been opening certain document and if he or she is claiming that it didn't happen, or eventually if you got a case of a data leaking and you are wondering who did that, then of course automatic destinations could be helpful here. Altogether, when you combine it with the USN journal, so fsutil USN and then read journal, and then you choose, of course, from which drive you would like to read it, then you were able to see that this user opened that file, and you can see exactly when, because touching the file, opening a file is actually an NTFS/USN related operation. And that kind of correlation is very practical because it shows you when things happened and what's the context of it. Yes, sometimes you can see that word open. Yes, but what kind of documents were used over there? Yeah, and then over here, you are able to see the history, the cache of these documents. And it's not only about the documents, and it's not only about Microsoft apps. If you search within Forensics Wiki, so there is a website, Forensics Wiki, for jump list IDs, because sometimes we call them JMP list, so jump list, and they have identifiers. You are able to find a really nice table of identifiers for also non-Microsoft apps. And technically, putting it also from a different angle, every app over there has actually its own identifier. And not every app is actually storing over there very juicy cache, but most of them, they are actually. And you are able to see various things like even MAC addresses or IP addresses that you have connected to and so on. And that history is maintained in your profile since you've installed your Windows. So if you're running Windows Box for the past 2 years or whatever, then you are able to see everything that you have ever opened in this box. That's why technically it is actually quite cool, but at the same time it is very not to rely on, because first of all, it's not digitally signed, so we can assume that hacker could technically change it. And the second part is that not every application, of course, it's leaving that cache, but most of them they are, and this is what you were able to check. So question would be, how often did we actually see automatic destinations being changed on the fly within the hacker situation? And the answer is we actually haven't seen it. So automatic destinations, until of course the profile is deleted, it's very, very nice if it's about what it actually contains. So long story short, you are able to see quite a lot of interesting evidence that could be related with what kind of things, files hacker was working on the fly. So if you guys, of course, have any questions, please please go ahead and ask them. But also from the disk, we are able to extract much more than that. Yes, not only we are able to reach cache of many solutions that we might be using within Windows, but also we are able to play with the USN journal, as I mentioned, prefetch. Also, we are able to extract files that were deleted. We've got our own tools to do that. So you can technically delete the file. Also, you get a possibility to recover it from the MFT if the file is small enough. So there are so many things that after the attack we are able to get. Quite recently, we were able to find out within the customer side that this was actually the case of a customer where hackers managed to access their environment through the vendors network. So it was also pretty interesting. And eventually we managed to find out that there's an executable, like a remote control executable to control the attack. And it looked like it has been there for 2 years. But if you look into the USN journal and so on, you are able to find that they actually changed the metadata so that the file that has been dropped over there 3 weeks ago looks like it has been there for 2 weeks. And we were able to extract it from the USN journal. Now, of course, next question would be, could hackers delete USN journal? Absolutely. But it's, again, something that is not really seen happening during the attack. So someone needs to be really careful and really cleaning after themselves in order to actually clean all the evidence. That's why, especially within the current times, when we have never seen so many attacks like right now, and we've never had so many incident response projects like right now, it is so important to get your company ready for the incident, also from the perspective of investigation, to get appropriate skill set and knowledge of what in general can happen, what in general can happen also from the privilege perspective, and how at the end we are able to extract this information from the logs that we got. So quite an interesting perspective on our disk and memory analysis. Okay, guys, so let's summarize a little bit. And again, if you got any questions, please go ahead and ask them. Hopefully you have enjoyed the presentation of Sami and Michael and myself. So these were just these 3 perspectives on what can we do better, and eventually what do we need as a skill set in order to be better and to respond better to various attacks that are happening out there. And of course, let's get into the next part. Next part, of course, is related with the challenge. Yes, so eventually we have asked you the question, and you guys were responding to it. So let me get to this point. So here we go. And of course, we're going to announce the winner. Yeah, so this is the setup, this is the challenge that we got. And question, of course, is when you list permissions for the file, you can realize that inside these permissions you have actually some numbers. Exactly, which number represents the read data permission? Read data permission. So this is what we got, and eventually we have prepared the form for you to answer. That's the forum. So that's the CQU.RE/HH challenge. So please go ahead. And Kate also will send the link in the chat. So as usual, the first right answer is going to be awarded. So please make sure that you're gonna solve the challenge, and then you're gonna put the answer into the forum. So you guys can participate in our challenge right now to win the award. So we're gonna leave it for the moment until, of course, we announce it. So please make a print screen for the question and for the link, and find out the good answer and submit it within the form. Yes, so we've got that part. Okay, so we are collecting the answers right now. Let's move forward. So of course, within this all concepts and within all contexts, you guys see that cybersecurity is an important factor. Yeah, so we, of course, with our approach and our education, we think technically that we can help you fight cybersecurity threats in 2022. And here's, of course, the quick list of things to do in order to be prepared. One of the things you can watch our webinars, of course, to learn a little bit more. You can read, for example, Windows Internals book, and that is something that is absolutely necessary to understand the background for all of the attacks. You can build yourself a lab when you can test all the new tools and exploit the vulnerabilities. You can also follow us with various videos and so on. And there are, of course, some cool tools that we've got that you guys can test. There are also nice communities to join to learn. And of course, there's also, as we call it, a secure way to level up. And it's a little bit more organized, to be fair, and more time efficient way to get advanced knowledge, learn on how to act against cybersecurity threats in 2022. And a lot of you already know, of course, what I'm talking about. And that thing that I'm talking about is our yearly advanced Windows security course for 2022. And why it's so cool, and why, of course, we will need to spend some time to talk about it, because here in this webinar, I would like to, of course, officially open the enrollment process for our favorite certification program. So that's, of course, Advanced Windows Security course for 2022, and which is the program specially designed for more experienced cybersecurity professionals out there. So that's something that you guys need to know. And all the details you can get at secureacademy.com/advanced2022. And a couple of course, key facts about the certification program. What you guys need to know. First of all, what you guys need to know, it's already a 6th edition of the program, so it's pretty exciting, because we've got people, by the way, that have that are attending every edition, because every edition, by the way, is different. So this is also important to know. But eventually, summarizing what is in the course is that the program lasts, by the way, 6 weeks, and it starts on January 18th, and sessions are happening twice a week, mostly Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Central European time. So this is the 1 p.m. Eastern time. So we will need to always or compromise on some kind of a time zone for sure. But there is actually as well a holiday break at the end, where basically we are able to refresh and study. And in March, the course finishes with the exam. So this is also very important. And all the sessions will be online, but of course live with Sami, with Michael, with myself, and other team members from CQURE. And eventually there will be tons of demonstrations twice a week, and practical stuff, some hardcore homework, always some preparation as well. And for every course, of course, we've got 2 hours live on Thursday and Tuesday, or Thursday. And there will be also a secret group on Facebook where we can network and where we can actually chat during the time of the course, and we are able to support ourselves and yourselves. Plus, of course, you'll get slides, recordings of every live session and all the precious CQURE tools and scripts that we are writing, especially for that course. So hopefully, of course, you're going to like the idea. And now what's cool, if you guys pass the exam, of course, at the end, you will get from us our CQURE Academy certificate, which is called Windows Security Master 2022. And of course, let's see what kind of subjects we are able here to cover. So one of the things is applying the lessons learned, the ultimate guide to incident response and forensics. So that's going to be the session that I'm starting with because of the increase of the attacks that we have experienced within the 2020, 2021, and with all the interesting lessons learned. Active Directory persistence techniques in order to learn how we are able to leverage identity for hacking and what can we do about it. Hackers' perspective on cloud security, and that's also very cool because everybody's asking, how can I audit my cloud configuration? Yes, so how am I doing it right, and all these things. So we're going to present that one in the module. Public key infrastructure under revision. And that's pretty amazing because you're able to become, for example, domain admin easily if the PKI is misconfigured. Implementing principle of least privilege. So this is what Sami has been talking about today. Implementing privileged access workstations, file upload in .NET application. So that is something that gives us so many possibilities to escalate. And we are actually treating this subject in particular. We've got IS under attack. There's a small typo on the slide. And we've got a module 9, deploying smart card authentication in Windows and reverse engineering malware. So also very important skill, insecure web authentication. We've got at the end containerization and Kubernetes. So all these things we are actually covering. Yeah. Long story short, hopefully you're gonna enjoy the situation. You're gonna enjoy the training as well. And of course, all the details you can find on our website, which is actually, as I mentioned before, the secureacademy.com/advanced 2022. And if it's about the detailed syllabus for the session, you can find it under this link. So please have a look and become familiar with the details. And if you guys have some questions, then please let us know. Now, important part is that we've got a Black Friday offer. As all of the shops, we do have it as well. So you can right now apply with the code, which is called 3experts. So please make sure that you're going to note down the code because the code is valid till November 30th only. So it's important to apply and lock your seat. And secureacademy.com Advanced 2022 is the place where you can apply. And the tuition, as you can see, it's $19.90. And normally we've got a retail price for $27.99. And this is our special promo to you guys and everybody, of course, who is attending our webinar. Remember that, of course, applying first doesn't mean that you have to pay straight away. You just need to reserve your seat at the reduced price. So you can do that. And it's a pretty cool, I would say, deal from us because it's a pretty low price that we are selling it at right now with all the experts on board and your 6-week program. And now, of course, a little bit about the application procedure. So let me explain that. So what is important is that we are not taking everyone on board for an advanced security course for 2022. It's limited to 200 people only, and it's selective. And sorry to say that, but we were always doing it this way. And because we are doing it this way because it's not an introductory course. Yes, so we will not be getting into introductory knowledge. So if there is someone who wants to jumpstart in cybersecurity, that training would be too hard. We are only taking on board someone who wants to completely level up. So if you are already in cybersecurity, then that would be lovely to see you, of course, on board, because it's going to be we're gonna touch base on advanced subjects. Or if you are having experience in IT in general, then you would like to do something within security, but you are not a beginner, that's the moment where we can say that this training is for you. So we just want to make sure that you've got enough experience with Windows security to handle that intensity of the training. As you've seen in the syllabus, we'll be getting into some geeky stuff, and there's going to be homework between sessions, and you will have to be cool with hacking and trying new stuff. So that's basically what we got. And once you apply on our website, we're going to take it's going to take a couple of days to review your application, and you will get a phone call or email from us with a decision. And hopefully, of course, I will see you again in a bit more than 1 month. And also, this course is, as I mentioned, is limited to maximum 200 people. And the reason why it's like this is because within our team, we have to handle everybody, meaning that it's going to be intense, and there's going to be questions, and we need to make sure that we are not running a big group at the same time, because we would like to assure a quality and be for each of you with the highest possible quality we can offer. So that is what we have decided to do. So this is like an academy running for 6 weeks with 200 geeks on board that support each other. By the way, lots of people changed their jobs, invested into their jobs, got promotions after this course, and we know so many stories already. Some of the people, they're running their own companies right now on cybersecurity after this course. Literally like that. So so hopefully you guys gonna also join us. We already have a great group, of course, of approved applicants from the various conferences that we've been announcing this training on, and we of course did a soft launch already. So please make sure that you're gonna also book your spot. And the group includes professionals with over like 5 years of experience in Windows, in security related projects, working in public, commercial, security consulting, and so on. So there are plenty of things. Plenty of things that we've got as a skill set that is already on board from the guys' perspective. And we've got also a couple of MVPs as well. We've got also the people from the community that we recognize. So we've got a couple of guys that came back for the course. So in fact, we've got approximately 140 seats available right now to be taken within the course. So please go ahead and book your seat. And if it's about various testimonials, well, Advanced Windows Security course is something to be fair that we are super proud of, and hopefully, of course, we are able to expand that international community of experienced geeks who for over 1 month intensively learn and develop together. And we are also proud of super positive comments that we are getting from the last year's alumni, and we are always happy to hear your stories afterwards. So hopefully for this edition, we're going to also have a bunch of success stories. And if it's about all the other things to say, what can I do? Do it, of course, before the November 30th. Use the 3Expert code, and it's better to do it even today, so we can technically charge you less before that offer expires. Of course, if you qualify. So please, if you would like to join our team, our training over here, and learn some stuff together, then do that. Yes, and it will be lovely to see you on board. Okay, guys. So question is, who is the winner of the course? And I have already someone here announced. So let me do that. And we've got a winner of the No Latfeed. Yeah. So here we go. I hope that I'm reading it properly. So it's a NOLAA TV. ETB. So no Latfeed. So Kate, I hope that you're going to post it as well in the chat, so that please, of course, if you're the winner, go ahead and please get to us because you are at that point winning the course that is worth $27.99 as a retail price that we got within the market. So big congratulations to you, and thank you so much for answering the correct question. Of course, the correct answer. So correct answer for the read data, it's 2 to the power of 0. So it's 1 because it's the first granular, the minimal granular permission that we are able to give on files and folders. So that's the read data 2 to the power of 0, which is actually 1. Yeah. So here we go, and this is an access mask within the permissions. And okay, guys, if you got some questions, please go ahead and ask them. Now it's a Q&A time. We're gonna be still in the chat, helping you to helping, of course, to your questions. So if there's something to be asked, please go ahead and do it. And long story short, don't forget, of course, to sign up to our course, which is secureacademy.com/advanced 2022. So thank you so much for being at this webinar, and stay healthy, and cheers to all of you. And if you guys have any questions as well, don't forget to also drop them in the chat. If there's going to be too late already, what we're going to do, we're going to also later on record the answers to the questions, because we also publish various videos with questions too. Questions and answers that you guys sometimes ask. Sometimes we're getting questions as well through emails, so we tend to summarize them as well within our videos. So thanks a lot, guys. Take care, and thank you as well, Michael. Thank you, Sami. Thank you, Kate, and thank you, guys, for being with us on this webinar. And hopefully, of course, we're gonna see you as well at the course. Thanks.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.